at least one, I don't know of any, certainly from the Blindbrook district, but maybe somebody from the Pointchester district who could have helped and opined on that, because that's the biggest piece of the puzzle. I mean, we know on a percentage basis where our taxes are, and I'm not familiar with that there is anybody there that has at least, I won't use the word expertise, but the knowledge of the fitting together the puzzle of how the town, the village, and the school districts work. Because it's nice to have somebody who's got that.
Well, I think you have that experience. We welcome you onto the committee. This particular report is simply factual, and all the data has been confirmed by each of the village administrators and each of the respective municipalities.
Is that on the website?
Well, we're distributing it to the board tonight.
Oh, okay.
We're going to get comments from the board to any typos and stuff, but you're more than welcome to take a copy, and if you have any questions or comments, please send them to us. The idea is to present it to the board tonight, get the final comments from the board, and have it published sometime in the next couple of weeks. So this brings to a close the first stage of the committee's work, and there's no recommendations in here, simply factual. And then we'd love to have you come participate in the monthly committee meetings and get your input and so forth and so on.
Thank you. I thank you.
Doctor, I just want to give you a little bit more insight on this. The meeting where the bulk of the conversation was had when we were talking about this grant was held in Rhinebeck. As a matter of fact, Mayor Pilla had a lot of the information with regards to the technical aspects of the grant and what was required of these participants. And my biggest problem with it, and my biggest concern, was that we were going to spend money on a grant that was going to bring a resolution, and that we needed to be prepared to act on this. So if this grant is the money spent and the process is successful, and there is a resolution that says the best thing for the taxpayers is to eliminate the town of Rye, I'm committed to it. And the board, I don't know if you guys remember this.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
But we're committed to that. That's the most important thing, because there's always studies that are done, fire studies, consolidation studies, and not just locally. You've seen this, throughout the state. And there's a lot of money that's spent, and we're spinning our wheels, and I feel like I'm spinning my wheels again because I'm having the same conversation I had over in Rhinebeck. But that's the bottom line, is that there is going to be a resolve that's going to be in the best interest for this committee. The best interest for the taxpayers is to eliminate the town of Rye. Then that's what we're doing. So we're committed to the process. That's kind of where we are. The committee hasn't been set yet, but that was the other thing that we discussed that night, is make sure that we had a broad spectrum of qualified individuals that are going to administer to this grant. So,
because my sense of it is, and you don't have to be a genius reading the tea leaves, but given the circumstances of where the economy is now and the taxpayer burdens that you spoke about, if there's going to be a time where something like this can be done, this is it.
Sure.
So I think this is great. I give kudos to you folks for getting involved with it and trying to do it. And I personally, I think there are real savings that can be worked out. But I just want to know where we were and
it's very kind.
So I appreciate your time and wish you good luck.
Good. Hopefully we'll see you at the next committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to be absolutely clear for the public, so there's if you will, the four municipalities working together on the grant monies, with the grant monies from the New York State. And that's a effort by the Village of Rye Brook, the Village of Portchester, the Village of Mamaroneck, and the Town of Rye. That's a joint effort to look at the study, take those monies and evaluate with professional assistance the elimination of the Town of Rye. As a separate matter, the town has taken it upon itself to publish this report with the help of our Ombudsman, Greg Arcaro, and begin to look at the tax dynamic more in terms of factual information in the town of Rye. And this is the completion of the first stage of the project. The second stage of the project is to look at the information that we've assembled and begin to think about how we can more fundamentally reduce expenditure in our community, be it far-reaching reorganization along the lines I described, or simply sharing of services. But what we want to do is evaluate. I mean, look, my view is, the way I view my role as town supervisor is to bring my life experience and expertise to the benefit of the town. Since I happen to be a financial guy, this is an expertise that I have. When I first started, you've heard this story before, but when I first entered banking, there were 6 money center banks that ruled the world: Bank of America, Citibank, Chase Manhattan Bank, J.P. Morgan, Chemical and Manufacturers Hanover. I was working at Manufacturers Hanover at the time, which merged subsequently with Chemical, which merged with Chase, which merged with J.P. Morgan. So 4 of those 6 are now one. Clearly, American business would not have survived if it didn't consolidate and make itself much more efficient. And we are committed here, I think, on this board to do everything we can to make American government as efficient as possible, particularly in an environment where, as we've talked about, the tax burden is so burdensome and so heavy. So thank you very much for your question, Mr. Busen. Any other questions from the public? Okay. So if we're moving right along, I wanted to inverse the order, if I could, because there's no one here for the cemetery presentation, is there, Bishop? Oh, I'm sorry, no, for the park design presentation. That's you, isn't it? So the cemetery, I'm going to move the cemetery presentation up in the order and do that next, since there's people here waiting to present. Thank you, Mr. Kissner.
Thank you. Good evening, Supervisor Carvin and members of the board.
I'd just like to point out we have here and before us a presentation that Mr. Kissner's put together, and there's copies here available for the public as well if you want to follow along. Thank you, Mr. Kissner.
My name's Tom Kissner. I reside in Portchester at 377 Westchester Avenue. I'm a member of the ad hoc committee on the cemetery. That committee is made up of Dave Thomas, Jack Sakara, myself, and Greg Arcaro. My own involvement in this project goes back many years, however. I was, for 6 years, starting several years ago, I had the privilege of being the president of the local branch of the NAACP. And in that capacity, I took an interest in the cemetery. I asked the previous town administration to clean it up, and they did. I wrote a nice letter complimenting Mr. Frank DeLeo and his crew on the good job they had done, and I think I've done that at least once recently, and this is published in our monthly NAACP branch newsletter. Of course, we have a limited circulation, so maybe not as many people are aware of it. Currently, the people, as more than just the ad hoc committee, there are other interested parties. There is the Building Community Bridges, a social organization in the town of Rye and area. There's the City of Rye Historical Society, and among others, there are a handful of individuals who are the descendants of persons buried in that cemetery. I'm going to skip the history, because it's all on the presentation in front of you, and go straight to the recommendations. Based on the above, we recommend the following actions be taken to have the condition of the cemetery reflect its historic and cultural significance, and to document that significance for public information and appreciation. Phase 1, in the fall of 2010, formation of an advisory committee, a community-based sort of Friends of the Cemetery. That may not be the name of the committee once it's formed, but that's the suggested working title, with representation from the villages of Portchester and Rye Brook and Rye Neck section of the town of Rye, should be formed to maintain ongoing advocacy and help attract interest and funding. In other words, we're not asking the board for funding. The cleanup section would be done by existing staff and volunteers, and other funding for what we have projected so far would come from fundraising on the part of this committee. Part B, major cleanup. Complete a major, thorough cleanup of the cemetery using town staff and volunteers. The brush that has overgrown a number of the headstones needs to be cleared back to the stone wall bordering the cemetery. All land within the stone walls bordering the cemetery needs to